May you live in interesting times, they told me. I want to thank the honourable member for his information, and we'll certainly take it under advisement and make sure that when the publications come out, we'll have the appropriate numbers in there to reflect what happened, I guess.
What happened?
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this time and opportunity just to pay a special thank you to those individuals that have really had an impact on the lives of all Canadians. We often thank our first responders, our healthcare workers, and there are so many other people, from the farmer that produces the food to the truck driver that delivers it to the supermarkets or the food centers, to the individuals that provide the cashier services and stocking of the shelves, not to mention those services that are so critically important. The other day I had the opportunity to speak to taxi drivers and bus drivers. Imagine driving a bus, you don't know who's coming into the doors. When you're driving a taxi, the same sort of thing, who's entering your car. There are so many different people that are really contributing to ensure that we as a society are that much better off in getting through and assisting us through this pandemic. I wanted to, on behalf of the constituents of Winnipeg North, and I believe all members of Parliament from all sides of the House, just to express our appreciation and gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
Speaker, for months, Canadians have adapted to painful new realities. They are making sacrifices every day and expect their elected representatives to be their present voice in Ottawa. But this government has stripped Parliament of its work and continue to deny Canadians that voice. Preventing discussion on private members' bills means that my privilege and responsibility as a member of Parliament has been held captive. In February, I had the honour of tabling Bill C-233, the Sex-Selective Abortion Act. My bill would prohibit a medical practitioner from performing an abortion if the reason is the sex of the preborn child. My constituents, and indeed 84% of Canadians, have been clear that sex-selective abortion is not permissible in Canada, and yet we know it happens in our country because we have no law against it. It's time for Canada and this Prime Minister to stand up for human rights and inequality between the sexes from the earliest stages of life. It's time to restore Parliament and continue this vital conversation.
The honourable member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alors que notre pays...
As our country is facing one of its biggest challenges, every day I'm very encouraged to see how Canadians are mobilizing to help each other and offer kindness and hope.
Medical staff alongside paramedics from the Queensway Carleton Hospital in doing extra shifts in long-term care homes. Young people bringing groceries to seniors. Those who are sewing homemade masks, or local musicians doing free virtual concerts. We see the best in people during this time of crisis. Even children understand this, like 4-year-old Marcus, who noticed that his neighbors were a little gloomy, and so he was also not happy that all the rocks were gray. And so he decided to color the rocks with bright colors and deliver them to his neighbors' doorsteps. That is the kind of joy and kind of community spirit that we need at this time.
Throughout this pandemic, Canadians across the country are coming together and helping others. Thank you. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last weekend, Air Canada announced it was cancelling its flights to and from Abitibi-Témiscamingue until September 8th at the least. This is a flagrant lack of respect. Our regional leaders are angry, especially at a time when resumption of economic activity is pressing. Air Canada, to which the government loaned over $780 million to get out of this crisis, claims its status as a carrier, which includes a regional component. And we also want to get out of this crisis. So since the Rouen-Noranda airport is Quebec's third busiest, these cuts are unthinkable for our region. Air Canada must meet its obligations, take its responsibilities, and show consideration to people from our region. I'd like to thank the Minister of Transportation for his empathy, but now what will we do with this situation, which is quite tricky and frustrating? It is high time to set out concrete and lasting support support for small carriers that serve regions in Quebec and Canada. They want to offer their services. Our hand, therefore, is sincerely extended to find a lasting solution. Thank you.
For Fleetwood Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I had a neat story about the selfless people in Fleetwood Port Kells who are helping our vulnerable neighbours stay safe from the COVID-19 virus. But there's another virus present, the social virus of racism directed at our Asian community. News of verbal and physical attacks, although small in numbers, have amplified their level of worry and fear caused by the coronavirus itself. I know that questions about China's actions or lack of them, their attack on democracy in Hong Kong, and their increasingly belligerent and bellicose posture in the world concern our Chinese community as much as anyone. But they live in fear of speaking out if they have family still in China. I know this because I reach out and talk to them as their MP and as their neighbour. And today I invite all my other neighbours to do the same. Send the signal that in our community we all stand for that most Canadian value of working together for the common good. That's the very foundation for our way out of our current challenges and our way forward.
The honourable member for Saskatoon-Gresswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two great artists passed away recently in my province of Saskatchewan. Bob Pitzel of Humboldt in March and Hugo Alvarado of Saskatoon just a couple of days ago. Bob Pitzel was a masterful watercolor artist and spent many hours in his studio just south of Humboldt. Bob loved painting rural Saskatchewan scenes. His work often displayed the old farm homes, the fences, and the trucks. He also enjoyed painting trains and won many awards with his work. Bob is lovingly remembered by his spouse, Maureen Detzel. Hugo Alvarado came to Saskatoon from Chile with a mere $5 in his pocket. What a gift to our city. Hugo was heavily involved in Artists Against Hunger, raising funds for those in need. His paintings featured landscapes, cityscapes, and sun life, and still life. A former Saskatoon Citizen of the Year, Hugo always encouraged others to paint and express their feelings. We will miss these artists as both Bob and Hugo gave back so much to our art society. Thank you.
The honourable member for Alfred Pelon. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. More than ever in Alfred Pelon and across Canada, we appreciate the exceptional work that our agricultural producers are doing to feed our community with vegetable farms, horticultural farms, dairy farms, and livestock farms. The people of Lavallois are producing fresh products.
Behind our milk and cheese, our meat and fruits, our vegetables and produce. And make sure your kids know that tomatoes and strawberries don't come from shelves. Visit the farms and buy local.
Now that the season is underway, instead of lining up at grocery stores, visit one of our farms and buy local. This is one way we can thank producers who are working tirelessly and restart our economy. Let's do our part by encouraging companies from Alfred Pelon that are reinventing themselves. We all need each other. Let's continue to stick together. Thank you.
Honourable member for Canada Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I am honoured to stand in the House today to thank the people of Canada Carleton. Each day I am inspired by the way people of my riding have come together in the face of COVID-19. I am so proud of everyone. Volunteers, social service agencies, healthcare and essential workers, the farmers in West Carleton who are working to feed our families, and to the world-class high-tech companies in Canada who are providing the very tools and networks that we have come to rely on to do our jobs and to stay connected to our family and our friends. It's during times like this, Mr. Speaker, more than ever, that we appreciate how lucky we are to be Canadian. The contributions of individuals in my riding of Canada Carleton provide a great example of what Canadians are capable of, and I am so proud of the innovations developed in Canada are being used right across the country and as we navigate this crisis together. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Flamborough-Glenbrook.
Speaker, this coming Monday marks the beginning of Scleroderma Awareness Month in Canada. Scleroderma is a progressive and chronic connective tissue disorder that can attack one's internal organs, literally shutting them down one by one. It can also cause weeping ulcers, skin deterioration, Raynaud's disease, amongst other symptoms. While these past few years have seen advancements in treatments that can ease pain and slow the progression of the disease, researchers have yet to find a cause for scleroderma and are still looking for a cure. As many in this House know, I had to watch my mother suffer the awful effects of scleroderma inflicted on individuals, and in the end, scleroderma took her life. Unfortunately, my mother is just one of many women to be afflicted with scleroderma, as almost 80% of the sufferers are women, and most are diagnosed before the age of 50. Due to COVID-19, Scleroderma Canada has moved their annual walk this year to a virtual format. I encourage everyone to participate and be very generous. Speaker, research on new therapeutic measures have been promising, but we cannot rest until researchers find a cure for this horrid disease.
The honourable member for Pontiac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From day one, science has been at the centre of our government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're relying on the scientific advice of Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, our Chief Scientific Advisor, and many others to inform our decision-making and our public health response.
Back in April, we announced $1.1 billion to mobilize science. This funding will help to fight COVID-19 and will support Canadian scientists in the global race to develop vaccines and therapies and build our capacity to manufacture them when they become available.
Investments in science are already paying off. Yesterday, the University of Saskatchewan's Vito Intervac, an early federal funding recipient, announced that their vaccine was successful in animal models, meaning they'll soon be moving to clinical trials in humans. Mr. Speaker, Canada is home to some of the best scientists in the world, and Canadians trust them. So our government is committed to supporting them as they work around the clock to solve the COVID riddle.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, for more than 2 months, the people of Louis Saint Laurent and all Canadians have shown determination and resilience in the midst of this pandemic. Across my riding, I see and I pay tribute to frontline healthcare workers, the orderlies, nurses, and doctors, those who are saving lives and those who put their lives in danger. Across my riding, I see and pay tribute to essential service workers, those who work in grocery stores, pharmacies, corner stores. And I'd like to say that many young people, a growing number of them, work with honor and dignity in these companies. Across my riding, I see and pay tribute to charities, the food banks who are helping the most vulnerable. Across my riding, I see and pay tribute to people who are gradually resuming their regular activities while respecting public health guidelines. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to Monday morning at 9 a.m. when the hair salon for men is going to open. I'm looking forward to going back to it. So the COVID has changed the way we live and will change it forever. But one thing won't change: the grit and the resilience of our people, of Saint Laurent and all Canadians. Thank you.
Honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brook.
Mr. Speaker, the stories of residents and businesses across my riding rising to the challenges of COVID-19 are inspiring. The Haliburton Rotary Club donated 300 food bags to those in need. Kawartha Lakes firefighters raised $5,000 to the Kawartha Lakes Food Source. Whitney Plastics in Lindsay donated 2 boxes of face shields to the Kawartha Lakes Police Service. Gail Holness is raising money for the Haliburton Highlands Health Services through online yoga classes. Philippa Shevland, owner of Kawartha Quilting in Millbrook, is using her network to sew scrub caps for paramedics. Fleming College donated PPE to local health organizations and service providers. Local lake associations across the riding have donated thousands of dollars to food banks and to local charities. Volunteers Mike Bassett from Cannington, Jonathan Coote of Beaverton, and Hunter Lovering of Sunderland are using 3D printers to make ear guards for frontline workers. Children and staff at Archie Stouffer Elementary School in Minden initiated the Rainbow Project to thank frontline workers. Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock Lake, many communities right across Canada are banding together in their response to these challenging times.
The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Today I rise to honor all the healthcare workers who have lost their lives serving this country on the front lines of this COVID pandemic. According to journalist Nora Loretto, of the 6,000 Canadians who have died from COVID-19, over 5,000 are linked to residential care facilities at close to 86%. We know from the unions representing these workers a significant portion of these workers are racialized. I rise to honor Leonard Rodriguez, a personal support worker and a member of Unifor, whose family says his death was due to the lack of PPEs at his workplace. He was buying masks from the dollar store because his workplace wasn't providing him with PPEs. And after he was denied the personal protection from his workplace, he was sent home. He tested positive, and when symptoms worsened, he went to the hospital. A few hours later, he was discharged from the hospital and died 2 days later. Mr. Rodriguez's story cannot be forgotten. We must begin to collect race-based data related to COVID-19.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, Quebec has entered the second phase of this pandemic, namely business resumption. But unfortunately for some industries, it will take time. I'm thinking, among others, of tourism workers in eastern Quebec who still don't know whether there will be a summer season or not. Back to normal isn't going to happen overnight for all these people that also who are coming to the end of their 16 weeks of the CERB. So the government has no choice. CERB has to be extended. Too many families need it. But not with the same formula. The government promised the Bloc Québécois it would change the CERB and the student version so that it would also pay more to work than not to work. But it did not keep its promise. People in our ridings want to work. They want to contribute to the well-being of their region. And when they will finally be able to resume work, they shouldn't be penalized for their efforts. The government, Mr. Speaker, must keep its word. Before extending the CERB, it has to change it so that it supports the economic recovery rather than slowing it down. It's a question of respect for workers, Mr. Speaker, but also for the lasting nature of our companies and communities.
West Nova. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week is the first time that I've returned to the House of Commons since March, and I'm pleased to see that we're all healthy and slowly returning to a new normal. For the past several weeks, the entire Canadian population is going through difficult times due to COVID-19. Unfortunately, many people have lost their lives. In addition to this health crisis, the one that is hitting the world and across the country, at home in Nova Scotia, we have faced other terrible tragedies. On April 22nd, 22 innocent victims lost their lives in the worst slaughter that Canada has ever known. In April 30th, we lost 6 soldiers attached to HMCS Fredericton during a crash of their helicopter off the Greece coast. 2 of them were Nova Scotians, and Sunday, May 17th, we lost Captain Jennifer Casey in the Snowbird crash in BC. Since the current crisis prevents us from coming together, it's very difficult for all the families of the victims to overcome these tragic moments on their own. And I want to thank all of my colleagues, my constituents of West Nova, and all Canadians for reaching out to friends and family in Nova Scotia with their messages of support during this difficult time. My family, my staff, and I want to offer our deepest condolences to all of the families and loved ones and friends of those who have been lost. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, with you. Nova Scotia will remain strong. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Glengarry Prescott Russell.
Mr. Speaker, while our doctors, nurses, and orderlies play an essential role in the fight against COVID-19 and do remarkable work, today I would like to underscore the work of our paramedics.
It's Paramedic Services Week, and our paramedics play an important role in fighting COVID-19. I know there are many examples across Canada of paramedics stepping up to help neighbours and their community.
In Glengarry Prescott Russell, when our residents of long-term care homes had to be tested, our paramedics answered the call. I'd like to thank them. These men and women always answer our call and save lives every day. We are lucky to have such exceptional paramedical services in Canada. This week, I would encourage people to take 2 minutes to say thank you to them. 2 meters of a distance, of course.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we're learning today that on May 14th, members of the Canadian Armed Forces wrote a report detailing dreadful conditions at long-term care homes in Ontario. Soldiers had witnessed cockroaches, rotting food, seniors left in soiled diapers, and cries for help ignored for lengthy periods. I'm sure all Canadians are horrified to hear these details. However, the Liberals only provided this report to the province of Ontario on Sunday. In other words, the government sat on this report for almost 2 weeks. Why did it take a leak to make these details public? Why wasn't the Prime Minister transparent with this horrific information?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've said many times in this House and over the course of this pandemic that we need to do a much better job of caring for our seniors in long-term care right across the country. The report that came out is horrific. We received the report, the Minister of Defence received the report on Thursday evening. We notified the other ministers on Friday. He then passed the report to the province on the weekend, province of Ontario on the weekend. I read the report in full on Monday, and today on Tuesday it is being made public. Canadians need to know what's going on, and we need to work together to fix it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that that report was written on May 14th, so it took almost 2 weeks for that to be made public. Nos aînés,
Our seniors deserve better than this. They deserve better than the government waiting 2 weeks before publishing such an important report. We have learned that the Army is working on its second report that will discuss the situation in long-term care homes in Quebec. Can the Prime Minister assure us that he won't wait 2 weeks before reading it? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what happened in long-term care homes in Ontario is absolutely unacceptable, and this report is quite troubling. And that is why the Minister of National Defence received the report Thursday and shared it with his peers the next day, and we sent it to the Government of Ontario over the weekend, and today, Tuesday, we are sharing it publicly. We have to take action to ensure that we are taking care of our seniors. They've built this country, and it is our obligation as Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Has laid out that kind of timeline, Mr. Speaker. Simple question. Who had the report from May 14th until last Thursday?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on last Thursday, the Chief of Defence Staff passed that along to the Minister of Defence. The Canadian Armed Forces had the report up until that moment.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, media are also reporting today that the Minister of Digital Government has been promoting a fundraising campaign to sue Global News for their story that criticized the Chinese Communist Party. Now, WeChat is a Chinese state-sanctioned social media platform that is monitored by the communist state security. And worse yet, the minister has admitted that her taxpayer-funded political aide is the one who manages her WeChat account and allowed the fundraising campaign to be promoted. Clearly, this is inappropriate. What action has the Prime Minister taken in light of these revelations?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a party and as a government, we value the important work that journalists do right across the country. Attacking the integrity of hardworking journalists is absolutely unacceptable. The individual who posted this link on this particular group is no longer a member of this group and is not affiliated with the Electoral District Association in question.
The Leader of the Opposition.
You know what, Mr. Speaker, this is so typical of the Liberals. When it comes to things like this, they only apologize when they get caught. And when we put this in light of their whole approach to China, Mr. Speaker, foreign affairs experts are saying that this government's approach is to speak softly and carry no stick. Yesterday, I gave the Prime Minister 4 opportunities to condemn the attack on the freedom of the people of Hong Kong by the government of China. He refused. We've seen a pattern of appeasement towards the PRC. But this is much worse. By helping an arm of the Chinese government suppress media critical of the PRC here in Canada, the Prime Minister is actually doing their dirty work. Why is the Prime Minister's cabinet ministers helping the dictators in the PRC?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, the individual in question was not associated with the Electoral District Association or the Member of Parliament and Minister in question. We are, of course, deeply concerned about the proposals for introducing legislation related to national security in Hong Kong. With hundreds of thousands of Canadians living in Hong Kong, we have a vested interest in its stability and prosperity. We continue to support Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy and freedoms under the Basic Law and the One Country, Two Systems framework, which would be undermined by this proposal. We will always support and promote freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of the press around the world.
The Honourable Member for Burleigh-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how many empty answers the Prime Minister can give the media, the Parliament, and Quebec taxpayers, but the Bloc is going to follow up to see that he has his hand in the public purse. And in the La Presse this morning, it says that programs don't judge, electors do. The Prime Minister, does he have enough discernment to renounce the CERB that its party shouldn't have a right to and put it back into the coffers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, across our country, people who work for various organizations and companies could lose their jobs because of COVID-19. The assistance to workers that we've given is to be able to ensure that people continue to hold their jobs and keep it so that we can restart our economy. We implemented it quickly to help people across the country, and our emphasis is always on workers, and that is who we are helping with this subsidy. The Honourable Member for Burleigh-Chambly. I'm also wondering when we'll be able to go back to this, because the NDP said, yes, we won't be able to use the program, but until the NDP said this, we didn't know that the Liberals and the Conservatives asked for access to it and used it. So the program, it tends to keep links to the job market. It's a program for workers to protect jobs. So my question, is the Prime Minister saying today that he would have laid off all the Liberal workers if they hadn't had the wage subsidy? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, organizations and companies across the country are facing difficulties because of COVID-19. And this wage subsidy program is there for organizations that are charities, not-for-profits, companies that have seen a loss in revenue, and we're going to be there to ensure their continuity and the future of workers. In terms of transparency, Mr. Speaker, all companies that receive this, the wage subsidy, this list will be published. We always work in a desire of transparency with everything we do.
Burnaby South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians were horrified to hear the details as outlined by the military report of the conditions that seniors are living in long-term care homes. But seniors need more than just our compassion. They desperately need action. Report after report has made it clear that private long-term care homes have been the site of the most deplorable conditions. Will the Prime Minister agree today that it is time to remove profit from the care of seniors?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are all concerned about the situation that seniors face in long-term care centres across the country. And as I said, the federal government stands ready to support the provinces in their area of responsibility and jurisdiction. We will not be telling the provinces what they need to do in their areas of jurisdiction, but we all know that there is a need for serious conversations within all orders of government and amongst all Canadians about how we ensure that we are taking better care of our vulnerable seniors who have built this country, who we need to do far better by than we have been doing so far.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
But Canada needs national leadership to rally around the idea that seniors should not be made profit off of, that seniors should not be neglected. Les mêmes conditions.
The same conditions as were seen in long-term care facilities in Quebec. There have been many deaths, and it's unacceptable. The worst conditions are in the private long-term care facilities. Would the Prime Minister be willing to help them today? It's time to take profit out of senior care. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Any question about the administration of long-term care will go to the province of Quebec. That's within their jurisdiction. We have to respect the limits of their jurisdiction. But the federal government was there with help from the armed forces, and we will be there to help our seniors and workers all across the country. We will work with Quebec with full respect for their jurisdiction and the other provinces to look at what resources are available and how we can better serve our seniors who deserve much better than what they've gotten so far in this crisis.
Well, Mr. Speaker, military members serving in Operation Laser have sounded the alarm on the horrible abuse and neglect of our vulnerable seniors in long-term care homes. The military reported this abuse on May the 14th, but the Minister of Defence did nothing with that information until Friday. And the province of Ontario was left in the dark until Sunday because the Public Safety Minister sat on it till then. Our troops are in harm's way, witnessing blatant disregard for infection control, mistreatment of elderly residents, and the level of care described as horrible. Why did the Minister of National Defence sit on these allegations for almost 2 weeks?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, let me begin by acknowledging and offering my sincere gratitude to the excellent work of the Canadian Armed Forces who have answered the call to assist the province of Ontario and the province of Quebec. And their report of the appalling conditions that they found in these long-term care facilities in Ontario truly is disturbing and demanded action. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, when this information was brought to my attention on Friday, I took immediate action to reach out to the appropriate authorities, including notifying the province of Ontario and sharing those findings with them. As the Prime Minister has already indicated, our government received this information on Thursday. It was conveyed to me on Friday, and we immediately reached out to the province of Ontario and shared the entire report with them. Mr. Speaker, we share the concern for those seniors.
Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, that doesn't answer the question. The question is that this information became available on the 14th of May. The government refused to move on that intelligence and these allegations to go and protect the most vulnerable, our loved ones who are living in long-term care facilities. So the question is quite simple. Why did the Liberals sit on their hands for 2 weeks and do nothing to protect our loved ones in long-term care homes?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd just simply like to correct the misapprehension of the member opposite. As he has been told, this information came to the government on last Thursday and was conveyed to me the following day, and we took action to notify the province. The information that was gathered, important information by the Canadian Armed Forces, was shared with the government last Thursday, and we took immediate action to take the steps necessary to begin to remediate the appalling conditions they report there.
Honorable Député de Louis.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we're aware that a crisis requires spending and creates a deficit. The President of the Treasury Board is at the heart of government decision-making. He sees the money coming in and authorizes it going out. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer has announced a $252 billion deficit. Could the President of the Treasury Board tell us how much the deficit has increased by? He's at the heart of the decision-making. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we know that this is a crisis. We know that it's very important to invest in Canadian families and companies to ensure that we can get through this crisis. So we will continue with our approach, investing in this manner, so that we have an economy left when this crisis is over. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, how is it that the Finance Minister and the President of the Treasury Board cannot tell us how big the deficit is, but the Parliamentary Budget Officer can? They should know too, and they should tell Canadians the truth. Another thing, Mr. Speaker, a week ago the government said it was going to loosen conditions for loans, but we still have no news on that. Why? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's a different question. We will look at the situation when things are more stable, but right now things are evolving quickly, and we will look at our investments on a day-by-day basis. As for our programs, we've looked at how we could improve those programs, and emergency loans are just one example of relaxing of our conditions so that more and more companies have an opportunity to borrow money. Thank you.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, a relative of one of my constituents is a student who is renting out a room in her home to a foreign student. The student recently informed her that he's found a way to collect the CERB, go back to his home country overseas, and he would not be paying her rent any longer. So he gets to leave Canada, he gets to collect the CERB, and she gets shafted. Mr. Speaker, we are hearing more and more stories like this. So my question is, why are the Liberals turning a blind eye to individuals who seem to be purposefully trying to scam the system?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for raising this question. Our plan is very clear and has been from the beginning. That's to help people quickly and effectively, to help students and other Canadians, but students who are particularly having a hard time getting through the crisis. So we want to help all Canadians and all students so that we can kickstart the economy soon. And there are mechanisms that CRA can use to ensure that the money is sent out with good discipline.
Well, according to a memo obtained by the National Post, foreign nationals are not required to show any proof of status before getting CERB payments. Temporary foreign workers don't need to show a work permit, and international students don't need to show enrollment or a student visa. There are virtually no safeguards in place. Does the minister not realize that by failing to prevent fraud, he's actually encouraging it?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two very clear messages. In a very difficult situation for many Canadians, the Government of Canada has made a clear choice to help people quickly and effectively. From the very beginning, we informed all Canadians that this process would be done with discipline and that CRA officers would investigate afterward to ensure that Canadians only get the aid they're entitled to and that the system's integrity was preserved. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the wage subsidy is for stores and small businesses afraid of having to choose between going under and laying off workers. It's not for multi-million-dollar political parties. On May 15th, the Finance Minister announced that the wage subsidy would be extended by 3 months till the end of August. Did he know then that his own party would be taking advantage? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, the wage subsidy is very important in every industry all across the country. Because of our approach, we want to protect workers. So for a company that has a 30% drop in revenues, they have access to the wage subsidy. That's to protect workers. We think that's a good approach. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Migrants who are looking after our seniors in long-term care are doing outstanding work, and that's why we want priority processing of their applications in recognition of their dedication. We called on the government yesterday, but the Conservatives refused unanimous consent. We're going to try again today in the hopes that all parties will recognize that these people who are risking their lives to save those who built Quebec. Will the government authorize and accelerate the processing of their immigration applications? The Honourable Minister.
We're always very proud that Canada's been a welcoming society. We continue to open our doors to newcomers, and our immigration system continues to be based on compassion, efficiency, and economic opportunity while protecting the health and safety and security of Canadians. I want to assure the member that all eligible asylum claimants will receive a full and fair hearing on their individual merits of their claim. And while waiting for their claim to be heard, asylum claimants are allowed to work and study and receive basic health care coverage. Mr. Speaker, we're grateful for the work that they're doing in helping to serve vulnerable Canadians, and we'll listen carefully to the motions of the member opposite. Thank you.
Member for Saskatoon, Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals refuse to tell us what happened to the National Strategic Stockpile before this crisis. On Friday, the chief medical officer was asked if she ever advised the Liberals that the emergency stockpile was underfunded. But the health minister prevented Dr. Tam from answering the question. She claimed it was cabinet confidence. When will the Liberals come clean about their decision to reduce Canada's strategic stockpile?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank Dr. Tam and, in fact, the entire agency for being so transparent with Canadians all along. As the member opposite knows, we have been there talking to Canadians about the strengths and weaknesses of the National Emergency Stockpile. We have learned a lot over the last several months about how to create an effective network of stockpiling across the country, and I look forward to continuing to get regular updates from Dr. Tam at her daily pressers.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
So we still really don't have an answer, and of course she did muzzle the Chief Public Health Officer. In February, we know that they shipped 16 tons of protective equipment, including face shields and masks, to China. We also know they closed warehouses and put a bunch of equipment into the dump. Now they're in a global race to try and get as many face masks as possible, and we also know that many of the masks that are coming into this country from China are unsafe for our healthcare workers to use. So it's time for the health minister to apologize to the healthcare workers across this country who have had to scramble to get decent protective equipment.
Well, Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, I'd like to thank the healthcare workers across this country for the enormous work that they're doing on behalf of all of us. And as the member opposite knows, our government has been working so hard to protect them as well. I'd like to thank the Minister of Procurement and her team for putting together such a comprehensive procurement approach that makes sure that we can fulfill all of the requests from provinces and territories to the National Emergency Stockpile. Of course, we're working with provinces and territories to ensure that we have the appropriate equipment going forward. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister refused to condemn the odious attacks by China on the free people of Hong Kong. Worse yet, the Liberals voted against recommencing the Canada-China Committee to address the threat to Hong Kong's democracy by the CCP. Liberals claim to be defenders of freedom, but they stand by while a communist regime drags lawmakers out of a legislative council that locks up those who fight for democracy, and a regime that's hell-bent on exerting authoritarian rule over Hong Kongers. Speaker, enough's enough. When will the Liberals stand up for human rights? When will they stand up for democracy? And when will they stand up against the dictators in China?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, we are deeply concerned at proposals for introducing legislation related to national security in Hong Kong. With hundreds of thousands of Canadians living in Hong Kong, we have a vested interest in its stability and prosperity, the foundation on which are Hong Kong's relative autonomy and basic freedoms. Canada continues to support Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy and its one country, two systems framework. We continue to encourage all parties to engage in peaceful and meaningful dialogue to address the legitimate concerns expressed by the Hong Kong population.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals are so concerned as they say, why couldn't a group of Canadian politicians be able to address the situation on this special committee on Canada-China relations? If the situation is so concerning, the Liberals boasted in 2019 that they were going to defend freedom of expression. They want a seat on the Security Council. Why would they prevent a group of MPs from sitting on the special committee to deal with the issues of democracy in China? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have to refute that. There are 8 committees sitting currently. Agriculture has met 5 times with 32 witnesses. There have been 74 meetings with 580 witnesses across all committees that have been sitting. 24 ministers have appeared. We are dealing with this pandemic. We have held strong, and we have ensured that committees have been able to sit.
Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, Danielle lives in my riding and supports herself off of just $1,000 a month.
Because of her health condition, she is especially vulnerable to COVID-19 and struggles to protect herself. She has to buy medicine out of pocket, pay for the delivery of goods, and must avoid public transit, her only means of transportation. Danielle told us, there are so many little things that have added up. I can't afford my basic needs. Danielle doesn't need more empty promises. Danielle needs action from this government. When will they finally deliver the support people living with disabilities need?
The
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Important opportunity to thank the member for her question. We have put into place measures that are supportive of vulnerable people, such as people in her riding. We know how difficult it is to go through the crisis, so that's why we acted quickly and efficiently with rapid support through the increase in the GST tax credit, through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, through increase in seniors benefits. We're going to do that, Mr. Speaker, because we need to keep looking after Canadians.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of laid-off Canadian workers are being denied supplementary unemployment benefits as they negotiated with their employers, and the government has failed to explain why. Families need these benefits to pay their bills. These are not handouts. These are benefits negotiated as an insurance policy when laid off by workers and paid for by the employer. Now the government is stopping workers from collecting this taxable insurance. Unions and employers are asking this government to fix the loophole that denies workers the much-needed income. Why is this government denying workers their sub-benefits, and when will they fix this problem?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once more, it's a very important opportunity to say how difficult those circumstances that Canadians go through. We are mindful of them. That's why we have acted quickly on the CERB, in particular, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. 8.2 million Canadians have received at least one payment of CERB. We know that this is helping many Canadians, but we know there is more to do, and we'll continue to do more for Canadians.
The honourable member for Orleans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every day, thousands of truckers, many of them in my riding, travel all across Canada delivering goods that are essential, like drugs, food, and personal protective equipment. They are truly a crucial part of our supply chain. They keep our towns and cities in health. Since the beginning of this sad pandemic, this government has said that truckers should be considered essential workers so that they can do their work from coast to coast. Can the Minister of Transport tell us what steps he has taken in cooperation with his provincial counterparts to ensure that our valiant truckers can continue to do their so important work in full safety? The Honourable Transport Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for underscoring the essential and important contribution made by truckers. I'd like to thank them myself. I've been working since the outset with my provincial counterparts to encourage them to open up more rest stops so that they can use those and also use those as an opportunity to do outreach and education. We will not hesitate to take other steps to ensure that our workers feel safe on the job. Once again, thanks to the truckers.
In Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, grain farming in Ontario contributes 75,000 jobs and approximately $18 billion in economic output. A recent survey done by the Grain Farmers of Ontario has indicated the following. 86% expect their net income to be reduced in 2020. Over half of the grain farmers are already seeing a reduction in sales, and another 24% are experiencing cancellations or delays of existing contracts. 1/3 are experiencing cash flow, and another 1/3 expect cash flow issues in the near future. 55% fear that they have inability to cover the cost of production. What is this government actually doing to help the farmers during this pandemic and for the future? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Permettez-moi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind you what we've done for producers. They do provide an essential service and provide for our food safety. So we have invested $1.6 billion and additional monies for beef and pork producers, $76 million for processors, $2 million for the CFIA, $50 million to bring foreign workers in, and we'll do more. We know how important our producers are for the Canadian economy.
The Agriculture Minister is telling farmers they can't say that the programs offered just aren't good enough. She's also saying she doesn't know where the gaps are or where the funds should go. Well, here's a start. Exempt agriculture from the carbon tax. Regain the $5 billion in lost markets that Liberal blunders have cost farmers. Improve the livestock insurance program. And yet her advice to farmers is drain your savings or go further in debt. Can the minister tell me what other essential Canadian industries the Liberal government have told drain whatever savings you may have before you're offered any meaningful assistance?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are a whole lot of programs available to our agricultural producers, and we're doing more. We're working with them to identify which groups have additional needs. I would remind everyone that the emergency fund, we heard producers say that many of them had trouble accessing that program, so we relaxed the criteria, and that increased direct aid to producers.
For Yorkton Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Public Safety has ruled that the firearms contained on the Order in Council banned list were unsuitable for sport or hunting, despite the government providing transport permits for over 30 years for the purpose of sport shooting with those firearms. Why is the minister choosing to attack law-abiding gun owners instead of gun smugglers and criminals who have absolutely no intention of obeying his restrictions?
Minister for Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just to be very clear, what we have done is we have prohibited weapons that were not designed for hunting or for sports purposes, but rather designed for military use, for soldiers to use in combat. There is no place for those weapons in our civil society. They have been used tragically in many mass shootings in Canada and around the world. We promised Canadians that we were going to strengthen gun control, and we have taken an important first step. There is more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will do that work.
The Honourable Member for Battle Fords, Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Prime Minister doesn't like energy workers, he won't support farmers, and he's going after responsible firearm owners. The Prime Minister should be targeting the criminals who traffic in illegal guns, not hunters and athletes. The Prime Minister seems to only support Canadians when he thinks he can get their votes. So, simple question. Can the Prime Minister tell us why he's playing politics during this pandemic?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there is no greater responsibility of any government than to keep their citizens safe. And what we have seen tragically, even through this terrible pandemic, is that gun violence continues to plague many of our communities across the country. We've seen increases for example, in the incidence of domestic violence. We have promised Canadians we will strengthen gun control, and that includes bringing forward new regulations with respect to the storage to prevent them from being stolen, new laws and regulations with respect to the border to prevent them from being smuggled, and new regulations to prevent their criminal diversions into the hands of criminals. Mr. Speaker, we will take strong action that is necessary to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the government announced it was going to be giving workers an extra 10 days of sick leave. Unfortunately, given that 95% of workers don't come under the Canada Labour Code, that's not this Parliament's job to decide. I'd like to know when the Prime Minister says he's not going to encroach on Quebec and provincial jurisdiction, this is exactly what we're talking about. So my question's simple. Just before the announcement was made, was an agreement reached with Quebec and the provinces? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to answer that question. We know that the current crisis began with a health crisis, and then it took the form of an economic crisis. Both are very important. Both the economy and health are important. We're going to work with all provinces and all Canadians to ensure that all provinces agree we need to do more to protect Canadians' health and the economy. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Obviously, there was no agreement with Quebec and the provinces. Is this government saying that if the provinces decide to give 10 more days of sick leave, that's okay with the feds? That's nothing more than a wish. Who's going to pay for it? The feds? The provinces? Quebec? Employers grappling with this crisis? Or the tooth fairy? How can the government announce something as a fait accompli when it's 95% up to another jurisdiction? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague for raising the issue of cost. There are astronomical costs associated with protecting workers' health currently. Employers, workers, unions, and governments are aware of the fact that in order to get through this crisis, we need to protect worker health so that they can protect their families' health and their co-workers' health. And that's the angle we need to take in working with the provinces and territories.
Brooke.
Mr. Speaker, more than 1 million tourism-related employees have been laid off. Summer festivals all over the country are being canceled. Kids' camps are closed. Many restaurants, a recent study is telling us that it's going to devastate the industry. In rural communities, mom and pop businesses are being told to close, yet big box stores are allowed to open. Rural Canadians are told to work from home, yet internet and cellular service is sketchy at best. Rural communities are going to be the hardest hit and in many cases the slowest to recover. Will this Prime Minister finally start to put rural Canada and the tourism industry top of mind, especially when creating recovery programs?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the brief answer is yes, because we have done that from the start. We know how difficult the crisis is across all Canada, in particular across rural regions, with the tourism, the transportation, the industry around, the restaurants and the services. The times are very difficult for all regions, and particularly rural regions in Canada. That's why we have announced just recently an important regional fund, which in addition to the wage subsidies, the emergency benefits, the emergency wage, the emergency loans, all of that will help regional Canada, rural Canada, to go through the crisis and emerge more strongly as we come out of it.
Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, tourism is vital to the Okanagan economy, and businesses have a very short window in order to make enough revenue to carry them through to the next season. With COVID-19, events, festivals, conventions, and travel for families have all been cancelled. Related companies are also affected, like cab drivers and event suppliers and bicycle rentals. The Prime Minister stated on May 5th that the government was looking into tourism-specific supports, and it's now been 3 weeks and still nothing. The Liberals are letting tourism operators down. When will this government announce their plan for the tourism sector?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ça me donne la chance.
Thank you very much. That allows me to continue on that same topic. As I mentioned earlier, the Regional Recovery Fund, $962 million, is going to support recovery along with other programs like wage subsidies, emergency loans, and the CERB to help workers who have sadly lost their jobs. We are going to do that to support regions, and it's going to be crucial in order to move through this crisis.
Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, businesses across the country are struggling, and the government has been saying if the emergency business loan's not enough, entrepreneurs should apply for the Business Credit Availability Program that provides loan guarantees through Export Development Canada. While we heard at Finance Committee how some of the programs are performing, there has been no feedback on these loans specifically, despite my repeated questioning. So simple, straightforward question for the Minister. How many business credit availability guarantees have been issued since March 13th?
The Honourable Minister for Small Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for that very good question. We have put many supports out to help our struggling small businesses across the country, including the Business Credit Availability Program, additional lending supports for our businesses, and I look forward to making that information available to my colleague and to members of this House. These supports really are going to help our small businesses weather through this difficult period with the operating capital that they need during this time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Louis.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Louis. Mr. Speaker, the arts and performance sector has been hard hit by the pandemic. This is a sector that brings together many Canadians, many of whom are freelancers. For example, Liz McRae, one of my constituents, who makes her living on contract as a voiceover professional. How is the government going to support these Canadians long term? Canadians who work in the arts and culture sector while we wait for a vaccine that will allow us one day to go back to our regular cultural activities.
L'honorable président du Conseil du Trésor.
The Honorable President of the Treasury Board. I'd like to thank the member for this question. More than ever, we need our artists to bring us together and keep us strong throughout this difficult period. Since the beginning of the crisis, this government has taken solid measures to support this sector. For example, we ensure that artists who are receiving royalties can receive the CERB. We have also announced a $500 million program to meet the needs of the heritage, sports, and culture sectors. Our support has always been there and will continue to be there for our artists and athletes in the context of the current crisis. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Thank you very much. Who said that COVID couldn't be transmitted between humans, that we didn't need to close the borders, that we didn't need masks? Who said that? The government. Was any of that true? Sadly, no. And today we're paying the price for that. Today, we've learned that the Liberals would like to make it an offense to spread misinformation. Are they going to be locking themselves up? What is happening in our democracy? Should the Liberals really be telling Canadians what they should and shouldn't read, what is true, what is false? Why attack freedom of expression when we're in the middle of a pandemic?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm extremely proud of our officials and our government for adapting to science as it has evolved. As the member knows, COVID-19 has only been with humans for about 4.5 months, and we've learned a lot in that time. And as new evidence has come forward, we've, of course, adjusted our advice to Canadians to best protect them. In terms of disinformation, Mr. Speaker, it's extremely dangerous that Canadians are being fed information that's false, that's misleading, and that can increase risk to themselves and to their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, we'll make sure that Canadians have access to credible information about how to protect themselves and their families.
Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, this is the government that said human-to-human contact doesn't transmit the disease. They said the border doesn't need to be closed. They said wearing a face mask won't help. The minister opposite now is saying they'll make sure that misinformation isn't spread. Don't worry, Canadians. Really? These are the individuals that we're going to trust to make sure that false information doesn't land in the hand of Canadians? They are spending $3.5 million to shut down voices across this country. Mr. Speaker, since when is that okay?
The Honourable Health Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be a part of a government that believes in investing in science, that believes in investing in research, that understands that science evolves and that a response needs to evolve with it. Mr. Speaker, we're part of a government that actually unmuzzled government scientists, that made sure that we restored funding in the agencies that support our understanding, not only of this disease, Mr. Speaker, but many other diseases that threaten Canadians. We will always stand up for credible, information-based information that can actually support Canadians to make wise choices about how to protect themselves and their families.
The Honourable Member for West Nova.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We understand that the Nova Scotia massacre investigation is complex and due to the number of lives lost and, of course, the crime scenes that it has. The only information that the families and the public are getting are through the media from heavily redacted RCMP documents, and it looks like they're hiding something, leading to the Premier of Nova Scotia saying that it was up to the Prime Minister and the government to call for an independent inquiry. The gunman is dead. The families deserve answers. Will the Minister of Public Service ask his partners to break from the secrecy and provide information as it becomes available?
Chair of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member opposite for what I think is a very important question. I understand the people of Nova Scotia, and particularly the families that were impacted by this terrible crime, need answers, and they deserve that information. And we are working very closely with our law enforcement officials, but also with the province of Nova Scotia. I'm in regular contact with the Attorney General in Nova Scotia. We've been working together to make sure that we put in place a system whereby all of the people of Nova Scotia and Canada can get the answers to the important questions that they have about this terrible crime, and that if there are lessons to have been learned, we'll make sure those lessons are applied so that a terrible tragedy like this cannot happen again.
Honorable député de Longueuil-Charlemagne.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charlemagne.
We know that small businesses across the country are greatly impacted by this crisis.
Our government has been supporting them by putting forward various measures like the wage subsidy, including CEBA and rent support. We also know that while they need financial assistance, they also need help to navigate the various measures available to them, and many of them are turning to their financial advisors for information. Can the Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade update this House on what the government is doing to make sure our businesses get the help and the information they need? Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Small Business.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for her advocacy on behalf of small business and for the people of Longueuil, Charles Lemaire. And the smallest and most vulnerable businesses may face the additional challenge of accessing financial planning advice to help them survive through this difficult period. It's why we launched the Business Resilience Service. It's a 24-hour, it's a free hotline operated by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada. It's going to operate 7 days a week for the next 4 weeks, and it's a service that's going to help Canadian business owners, including those who run charities and not-for-profits, with customized financial guidance from navigating tax regulations, government supports, and planning their path to recovery. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Great help for small.
The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
In my statement, I shared the very tragic story of Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Speaker, noted professor of law and medicine Amir Atran publicly stated, quote, "I am appalled at the Liberals who talk a fine line against racism, won't make it a legal requirement to collect data on racial minorities in COVID when they are at the greatest risk. See no evil is the Prime Minister's choice, and it's racist." End quote. Mr. Speaker, will this government make it a legal requirement to collect race-based data related to COVID-19?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Honourable Member's question. This is an issue that is really important to us. Disaggregated data will better inform our policy-making process. In fact, under the Emergency Community Response Fund, we have required the intermediaries to provide disaggregated data up front to our government so that we can respond more effectively to vulnerable communities, including racialized Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada has incredible destinations, from spectacular mountain scenery to World Heritage Sites, the highest tides in the world, and vibrant cultural diversity. We can be proud of everything our beautiful country has to offer. Tourism is indeed a vital part of the Canadian economy. Before the pandemic, it represented more than $20 billion in revenue, millions of jobs, and 2% of the GDP. But now this sector and the people who make hospitality their career need our support more than ever. Can the Minister detail the plan to support the workers of this industry? Will they be able to count the hours they worked in the previous year when applying for employment insurance, as has been the concession for other seasonal workers? Thank you.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci à ma collègue de...
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my colleague for reminding us of the difficulties faced by our workers, specifically in the seasonal and tourist sectors. That is why we acted quickly to create the CERB, the wage subsidy emergency loan for small businesses, of which there are many in rural areas and in the tourist sector in particular. That is why we've also announced other measures. For example, EI benefits for those who wouldn't normally be eligible, and we will be working closely with all sectors and the provinces and territories to ensure that the tourist sector will be able to participate in the economic recovery.
That's all the time we have for questions. C'est tout pour aujourd'hui. Nous avons un appel au règlement de l'heure.
Point of order. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. I would like to draw the attention to the following motion, that this House recognize the contributions of hundreds of essential workers, specifically in the health sector in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, who are asylum claimants, and would ask the government to work with the Quebec government and other jurisdictions in Canada in order to prioritize and accelerate the processing of their files as well as those of their families in order to recognize their work during the current health crisis.
L'honorable député a-t-elle le consentement unanime de la Chambre?
Is there unanimous consent to move the motion?
Non, nous avons pas.
No. Unanimous consent was not granted.
For Hamilton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There have been consultations with other parties, and I believe if you seek it, you will have unanimous consent for the following motion. That the House recognize the increase in recent weeks in hate crimes and racism related to COVID-19 across the country, particularly towards those of Asian descent, and call on the government to take the